So how has your summer been? It's definitely been a time of change in your life.
Yeah, it's been extremely busy, but it's been a good summer though too. I think we're, as a family, there's I obviously myself and then my wife, and then I've got two girls. Taylor, who is 12 years old and going into 7th grade here at Harvard Westlake, or there is in the other campus. And then I've got a 7-year-old named Avery who is she's going to Dixie Canyon, so kind of right around the corner from here. And we're really excited about it. We've got family who lives out here. My wife's two sisters are both out here. One has been out, I think, 13 years, the other one about 3 or 4 years, and they've been on us to try and get us to come out here. And we finally wound up leaving Columbus. We've been there for the last 12 years, and my wife's parents are still there because that's where she grew up. I'm from Chicago, so we're both natural Midwesterners, and we've lived in a bunch of different places. But we finally bit the bullet, came on out, and my wife's parents are actually going to come out next year, so her entire side is going to be together. And I'm really close with them, so it'll be good.
So do you feel like you've kind of adjusted to the California-LA culture, or is it
That's a good question. I definitely haven't adjusted yet. We've been here, when did we get in? July 25th, so it's been just over a month.
So not too much time.
Yeah, not too much time, but we have been out here several times over the years because we have had her sisters living out here, so we kind of knew what was here. I don't know if you ever really adjust fully to what it means to live in LA, but I know I'm looking forward to the winters.
Oh,
That's for sure. Yeah, this would be the first time that I wouldn't have snow and extreme cold. And I've gotten to a point in life where the cold, even though I'm from Chicago and I went to school in Massachusetts, like these places that are real cold weather places, you get to a point where that cold really gets in your bones and you kind of can't thaw out. So I'm really looking forward to the winter. And at that point, maybe I feel like I've truly adjusted too. But I will say this, I think when you're outside of LA, you have an idea of what LA is. And it's not really like that. And that's a good thing because there are a lot of really ultra real people here.
Yeah.
And I've already found that. So I don't think the adjustment would be too much.
How about adjusting to Coldwater and all of that?
Oh.
I mean, the traffic can be mad anyway, but
Yeah.
with this kind of crazy construction happening right now, has it been all right, or?
It's been okay. There definitely have been challenges. I haven't figured out the times during the day where it's really busy yet. You know, so if I need to be someplace in 10 minutes, I may have given myself 15 only to find that I needed 35. And there have been other times I've given myself 35 and then there's nothing out there. I'm anxious to see what it'll be like once students start coming, you know, en masse on Tuesday. I think it's really, really going to be interesting. Actually, this past May when I came out here just to meet a bunch of people, there was a meeting I had, I think it was supposed to start at 8:30 maybe, and I wound up arriving at the intersection of Ventura and Coldwater at 8 o'clock. I'm thinking, oh, this is perfect. I didn't make it up here until 8:45. So I think that really put in my head there that I need to be adjusting times and making sure I'd rather be early than late. So I'll find a way to deal with it.
So for the coming year, what are you most excited about and what are you most nervous about?
The excited part is probably easy. I'm really excited just to jump in and get involved with the entire community. I mean, obviously I'm going to have students that are mine that I work with, but just other students too that I don't necessarily work with formally, just to get to know my colleagues really well. I know the deans decently well now, but to get to know them a lot better because they're such a great and good team and unified. And then also just get my wife and the girls involved in the community too. Like I really want them to feel a part of everything. So that's what makes me most excited. Nervous? Wow. The only thing I'd say that makes me nervous is probably living up to the standard that the deans have set. Because they do a great job, and there are very few institutions out there that have a model that's quite like this. And again, I think the things I've done outside of my formal duties before as a college counselor are things that naturally transition into this role, but never having done it quite like this. I'm anxious to see again how that's going to go, and probably a little bit nervous, but I think it'll go fine.
So you were a college counselor at Columbus Academy. And also a basketball coach.
Yes.
So you talk about getting involved in the community. Do you think you're going to get involved with the basketball program?
I hope to. I definitely hope to. I actually talked to Coach Hilliard today, and we've been emailing back and forth a little bit, and I expressed to him my interest in getting involved in the program. So we talked today, and it looks like there will definitely be some opportunities. I know that there will be a ton of work.
Yeah, so maybe the first year is going to be challenging.
Yeah. So just to learn how to navigate that space. But in my previous role, I was a head coach at my other school. And as that program head, you're doing so much anyway that I really was burning the candle at both ends.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife, we kind of joke about it, how during the season she truly is a single parent. So my whole family is used to that level of commitment on my part. So not being a head coach, it wouldn't quite be the same. So in certain ways it'll be easier, in certain ways it might be more challenging because of expanded roles as a dean. But I've got to be involved. If I'm not, I don't think I'll be fulfilled as a person. And I'll be a lot more miserable to deal with at home. And I don't think the family wants that at all. So.
Well, what about Taylor, who's going into 7th grade?
Yeah.
How does she feel about
You
being
know,
at Harvard Westlake, about you working here?
well, she and my other daughter were used to it. We were at a pre-K through 12, so the three of us, and it was all on one campus, so the three of us went to the same campus every day, same time. We left at the same time, except during the season when my wife picked them up. To rewind just a bit, when we first decided to move, my youngest, Avery, was so gung-ho, I'm moving to California, I can't wait. Taylor was the one who was most reluctant. I mean, she's at middle school age, and we're coming from a school where middle school started in 5th grade. So so she's been a part of the middle school for a couple of years now. And being at Columbus Academy for 7 years, I mean, she had all of her friends, her entire life was kind of there. And she was at that age where the social dynamic means so much. So moving and leaving her friends was tough. That was really, really tough for her. But once we got out here, I noticed that things flipped. She got into the Fast Start program there at Harvard Westlake and hasn't looked back. I mean, it has been the best possible thing for her. I love the way that they do things there. And she's gung-ho now about being here, where Avery is different because suddenly she's at a school where I'm not there, her sister's not there, people don't know her because before they knew her from even before she started going to school there. So for her, I think that was a smack in the face, like, oh my goodness, I don't know anyone here. There's no one to look out for me. But she, she'll adjust. She started school on August 14th, and so she's going into, I think, her 3rd week now, and she's doing okay. But I think for her, she thought it'd be an easier transition than it turned out to be. And for Taylor, it's been a much easier transition than she ever expected.
So how long were you at Columbus Academy?
For 10 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how has the transition been? What about, you were saying that there were some new things you hadn't experienced at your old school.
Yeah.
What is new for you about the way Harvard Westlake does things?
Well, there I was officially a college counselor. Now I had some other duties. I was involved in discipline and honor committee. I had an advisory, and there are a bunch of other things. There are tons of different hats I was wearing. But again, officially my 9 to 5 was college counselor. So the idea of coming out here and being involved as a dean, again, I just wasn't sure exactly what it would entail, but I kept being told by the staff, and they're people that I've known for some time, you're going to be great in this, don't worry about it, it's stuff that you're really used to doing. And now that I'm here, I've already had enough meetings with some families, students and or their parents, to understand that all the things that I did outside of my formal college counseling duties, just sitting down with students and talking about school, about colleges, about life, about whatever, all of those are things I was doing anyway. And as a dean, that's just sort of formalized that part of my role. So it's, I think it's going to be okay. And I'm excited to see where all these roads are going to lead.
So a kind of peculiar role that you have is temporary dean for some of the students.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about that, about having them for a couple months?
Yeah, I think because everything is new to me, it'll be okay. I worry about how they're going to feel and hoping that they don't feel displaced. But, I think they're getting farmed out to several of the deans. So we'll do a really good job with them and everything will be all right. But I think more about, from their perspective, how it'll feel to have their smaller group kind of broken up and become a part of something larger and feeling maybe on the outside. So as deans, we've got to do a really good job of pulling them in, and even though it's temporary, just making sure that they know they're part of the family that we created.
If you were psychic and you could predict the future, what's your ideal vision for the coming year?
Oh my goodness, that's heavy. First and foremost would be that Mr. Hudnut has a terrific, fantastic year where he is celebrated often and in the ways that he really deserves. I haven't had tons of experiences with him, but the few I've had, and all the stories I've heard about him. I mean, he's such a legend, not just here, but in the field. So I want him to go out in a really, really good way. Next would just be, as a community, that we have a solid year overall where the classes really come together, both individually as classes, but then as a whole in terms of all 3 grades being here as a community, and have a good year, really support one another. I mean, obviously for the seniors, I want all of them to have at least a college option coming out of this. I mean, it'll happen for sure, but I want them all to feel good about their options and to feel that the match, the fit for their college is a really good one for them. And then I think, again, just sort of a personal one for me and families, just really invest in ourselves enough in the community where we really feel a part of things, because I think we already do, and everybody's been so warm and welcoming, but I would love to see that continue. And I think if I'm thinking about it psychically, by the end of this, we'll all just feel really at home with one another.
And so expanding on what you said about having a unified educational experience between all the classes, what are your thoughts on the new Interdisciplinary Center?
Yeah, I haven't gotten all the information on that yet. I'm starting to learn some things, but interestingly, as a dean, we're all liaisons between the dean's department or office and all the different academic departments, and that happens to be the one that I'm going to wind up being responsible for. I mean, I love the idea of having that cross-pollination between different disciplines. So to see, again, that formalized in one department, that's a huge step. And again, that's not something that you see happen at a lot of institutions. Harvard-Westlake is obviously at the forefront of a lot of things, and this is just another one of those. So I'm excited to see how it's going to come together. I mean, I've already heard some things about, you've got a teacher from this particular academic department and a teacher from that department coming together to form a class. So just to watch it all play out, there's a ton of excitement and enthusiasm about it. It's got to be something that's going to be really good. There's a concept that I came across, it must have been about 15 years ago, called hybrid vigor. And, essentially saying the more things you bring together, the better the result is going to wind up being once synergistically they all come together, as opposed to really just over-specializing. This could wind up being a model, not necessarily for the way we're going to do things in every other department, but at least in terms of saying, okay, if we can do it well here, maybe there are other ways that we can have these same conversations happen between departments in ways that really uplift everybody.
So you're saying that you feel like Harvard-Westlake is at the forefront. What are some other things that maybe you knew about before or that you've experienced since you've come that you find to be unique about Harvard-Westlake as from an outside perspective? Well, now an inside perspective.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, the Dean's program is one of those. And again, I know that they once had pure college counselors here. So the idea that they would take a germ of an idea in trying to expand upon those duties and have it create a system that has become what it is now, this dean system that seems to work so well and that other schools are starting to model after. I mean, that's one of those points. I first came across Harvard-Westlake in my first admissions job with Kenyon College. One of my colleagues, Liz Foreman, who is still, she's like best friends with Mr. Walsh. She has been coming out here to visit ever since she's been in admissions, and so she came back and was touting Harvard-Westlake to all of us. So that was my introduction to the institution. Then Ms. Cuzio actually came out and visited on a counselor tour when I was organizing a counselor tour back in '96. So that's how I wound up meeting her, and that helped me to understand even more about the school. I remember plucking her brain about some things that Liz Foreman had told me and saying, wow, this place is really, it's a pretty fantastic place. I worked in college admissions for 7 years at 3 different institutions, and at each of them, Harvard-Westlake was always one of the schools. The school, Columbus Academy, that I'm coming from, is a terrific institution. It's one of the best institutions in the country. But there's a small list of the schools, and Harvard-Westlake has always been on that short list.
From there.
And what were the schools that you worked at?
Colleges, I worked at Kenyon College for 4 years, split between 2 stints. So from '94 to '96, and then 2000 until '02. In between that, I went to, I'm a Williams College graduate, so I went back to Williams in '96 and worked there for 2 years in admissions. After that, did grad school in New York City, and then went down to American University and did a year of admissions there while my wife is finished. Really? See, how about that? So my wife is in law school at Howard, And during her third year, I worked at AU, and then after that we moved back we moved to Columbus, and I worked those 2 more years at Kenyon before then jumping to the high school side.
So how has it been switching from the college admission side to the side where you're trying to get everyone into college?
That's a great question. It's drastically different. I've said this before, and I'll say it countless times again. I wish that everyone who did college admissions could spend at least 1 or 2 years doing college counseling, because you really get to see the student in their element, and you see how they truly feel about everything. When you're in college admissions and you meet a student, you always see them at their best. You know, they're going to have all the energy and enthusiasm, and they're going to tell you that your institution is the greatest in the world. You're going to look at a resume sheet and see that they do everything under the sun. You're going to look at their transcript, and their transcripts are going to look fabulous. And as an admissions officer, you say, how the heck do you get all these things done? You know, when you're on this side, though, on the high school side, you get to see just how much I hesitate to use the word stress, but how much stress goes into actually producing as much as you all do. I don't understand how you do it. I don't know that I could go to high school nowadays in the United States. I mean, it's amazing the amount of stuff that you all pack into one day. And another one of those things that goes along with it too, when you're in admissions, if you're looking at a student and saying, you know, gosh, I think Rachel would just be a fantastic student here, but for whatever reason we don't have space in the class, we're looking for something else, she's going to get in somewhere. So if we don't accept her, I know somebody else will, so it'll be okay, and her process is going to go well. When you're on the high school side, what you see is, say you have a student, say you applied to 100 places and got into 99 of them. The one you didn't get into is the one you're going to be thinking about, like, why didn't they accept me? And again, from the college perspective, you don't think that way. You're like, you know what, the kids' college process is going to work out. They're going to wind up with fantastic options. Even though we didn't work out, it's fine. But on this side, again, you get to see it really play out. And that makes it a lot harder. I do miss, from the college side, making the decisions on the kids and really forming the community the way we wanted it to be. But on this side, what I really love is just getting to know the kids on a much different level, like on a much more personal level, and you can help them through all the steps it takes to get to that point.
And at Columbus, was there that kind of, you know, here we have a good continued relationship starting in 10th grade. Does it, since it starts in pre-K, right, how soon does it start? Wow,
you know what, I shouldn't say a large percentage of the faculty there are involved in other activities. So for me, it wasn't just basketball. At one point, I was an assistant middle school football coach. I taught a class. You know, I wore so many hats. So I came into contact with kids at different points. The earliest that I came into contact with them was as a middle school football coach, and I also taught middle school my first year there. 7th and 8th grade, you know, so I got to start really working with kids then. But then also being a basketball coach, they're kids who have come to our games forever, so they know you for a long time. And then you work camps in the summer, you get to know these kids. So, you know, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade kids, you start to develop a relationship there that obviously winds up going all the way through their time at the school. So that part of it is really different. But, you know, I mean, institutions are just different in that way. So that's something I think I will miss in certain ways, just really watching a kid develop from yay high to yay big, but, you know, that's okay.
And I know that Columbus is a lot smaller.
Yes.
So how do you feel about coming to such a big high school?
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I mean, it reminds me a lot more of my own high school, my own experience. I'm a big city kid at heart. And I've done small college towns and I've loved them. If I retire in Williamstown, Massachusetts, that'll be the best thing that could ever happen to me. So I can do small towns well. Columbus is obviously not a small town, but it's not a major metropolis like this. It's a great place. Columbus is a great place to raise a family. It's good, it's safe, it's all that stuff. But I'm really excited to get back into places that have this much culture and just all this dynamic stuff going on. I think it fosters a great independent spirit in kids, and I've already seen that in the students that I've met with so far over the last couple of weeks. And I'm excited for my own kids to develop those same sorts of attributes, because that's something I had to develop growing up in Chicago. So it's, you know, I mean, again, it kind of is what it is. Every city is different. This one is like no other. This school is like no other. But I'm interested just to see how living in the city and around the city impacts the way kids deal with one another and within their own selves on a daily basis.
And so I guess you'll see that in Harvard Wesley kids and in your own kids.
Yes.
How have they been reacting to the move?
They're doing okay. They really are. I think, they miss their grandparents, but
you said they're coming out.
They are coming out, but they're already starting to flex some of that independence. We never really left them at home by themselves when we were in Columbus because we just, I don't know that we saw enough maturity from our then 11 and then 12-year-old to know that she was capable of doing that. But already she's wanting to have some time on her own, so even if it's an hour here or there, my wife and I can get out, go have lunch or go shopping and bring stuff back, and they're really appreciating having that experience on their own. So again, it's that independence. She went to Fast Start. She was talking to other students and realizing what their lives are like. And so I think I'm starting to see from her that she understands how sheltered her experience was before. Mm-hmm. And even though Harvard Westlake is its own bubble, it's still a lot less sheltered than the experience that she's had previously.
And what are you personally most excited about in terms of being in Los Angeles?
Just getting back to the big city. There's an energy about being in the city that you can't get elsewhere. You have so many people from so many different flocks of life and bringing them all together. And the other thing I've noticed about LA too, there are tons of transplants too. So it's not as if it's all folks who are native Los Angeles, I don't know how you say it, just together, and you're an outsider coming into it. There are lots of outsiders that come in and make it a pretty decent melting pot. Mm-hmm. But there's activity all the time, but in a way that's not New York City. Like New York is very different because there's always something going on all the time and you really feel like it never sleeps. I think that LA seems like it sleeps after a certain hour. And that reminds me a lot of Chicago in some really critical ways because I miss Chicago a lot.
So what about transitioning to LA culture? I mean, you were telling me how you're excited for the LA winter, and you feel like you made the transition when you got to experience that.
Yeah. Wow. Transitioning into LA culture, that's a hard one to answer. I think more than anything, it's just about being who you are, and you'll find your niche somehow. And it hasn't been difficult so far. I mean, I'm sure I'll encounter some things and say, that's just not who I am. But in bigger cities, there's such diversity that you're going to find something that's comfortable for you. Mm-hmm. But then there's also the element of being able to stretch beyond your comfort zones and encounter things that you normally wouldn't. And I'm excited for that too, whatever it may be. I don't know what that is yet because I haven't really seen something that's made me uncomfortable. I have, yeah. That was, we've been to the beach. One of the first things we did was go to Santa Monica Pier because that's the end of Route 66, and we drove out here from Columbus.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of did the historic Route 66 going out and veered off here and there a little bit, but that was a fun thing to have done. I think too, though, we said, we're living here now, so let's not approach it as tourists or vacationists. Let's take it slowly, let's just get ourselves into everyday life. And then we'll venture out and do things here and there as we need. But we haven't done a lot of the touristy things yet.
Is there anything else that you want to, get out and say to the student body?
Nothing more than that. I'm excited to jump in with both feet and see where it goes. It'll be a good time for everyone involved. We've got a great dean's team. They welcome me in. They're answering all the questions that I have, and I just want to make sure I'm doing a good service to all the students. So you got to know you can come in here anytime. This place is open. It's a good, safe space to be, and I've got a new couch. So if anybody wants to come in and they need to grab some Z's, I can be doing my work here and you can get a good nap. So yeah, it's all good.
Well, I found it very welcoming. So
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun.